Drum beats and gunshots announced the arrival of the Mwata at Mpembu Yekeleka. Here the Mwata, clad in all white, flanked by priests and priestesses, approaches what has remained of the trench and cast white clay, locally called Olyopemba, in their show of appeasement to the gallant warriors that had fallen protecting the gates of the kingdom's capital. After a frenzy of ululations, drum beats, and gunshots, the Mwata retires to the shelter to observe a moment of silence as the talking drum called Umondo is being beaten to pitches of sounds representing words that eulogize Kelekomozi. A few words are spoken to recite how the trench was built, including a common myth which talks about a Chimondu who had managed to cheat his way out of trouble, and the Mwata returns to his palace 25 kilometers away in readiness for yet another miniature ceremony. It is in the afternoon and crowds begin gathering on the western gate of the Mwata's official residence for the Umitentimo. Umitentimo is an occasion where the Mwata addresses his subjects. Here the Mwata makes pronouncements such as appointing members of the royal family and deserving individuals to positions of leadership and aristocracy. In ancient times it was here that the Mwata would declare wars and announce war victories. Preceding performances would take off before the Mwata's speech. This would include girls dancing to Isinkwesa, Isilem Walamwa, and older women who would wiggle to the dance of Amelapika. A selected royal rises to perform Umutomboko as a curtain raiser for the Mwata's time to rise. Mwata, dressed in Saitenj wrapper called Masando with his headgear called Ichibangula, rises to the sound of the Umutomboko drum beat and majestically dances to approach the appointees, who by this moment sit in the middle of the gathering and start issuing counsel on good governance and etiquette, then retire to the palace. The main day begins on a spiritual note and ends on a more celebratory one. In the morning the Mwata, again here clad in all white with his forehead smeared in Olyopemba signifying righteousness, emerges from his castle called Iketan, proceeds to the Nakabuchola shrines located in the palace grounds to ask for blessings and protection. It is believed that Nakabuchola is the principal goddess responsible for welfare of the throne and the kingdom. Mwata exits through the eastern gates to pay homage to the ancestral spirits of Chinyanta and his brother Nakosombala, who were assassinated by drowning in the Lualaba River. Before Mwata proceeds to the Inona River, where the symbolic cenotaphs of the fallen have been erected, Mwata first pays homage to the predecessors whose spirits it is believed linger around the Mayombo trees in Mwata's boneyard. Here in the Mayombo sacred grounds, the Mwata prostrates himself and crawls his way up until he is out of the sacred grounds. Before he leaves, members of the friar, each bearing a calabash representing previous Mwatas, also clad in white smear, Olyopemba, as symbol of consent by his forefathers. At the river shrines, Mwata is met by Dayuru Kabiya, who is the custodian of the place. He ushers Mwata to the river banks, where he cites innumerable incantations to summon the spirits to receive their son who has brought the offerings. After that, Mwata begins offering libations in forms of African traditional beer, mildly cooked cassava, and not well done on salted chickens and meat. After this ordeal, Mwata is now allowed to retain his pomp, lifted shoulder high back to the palace. He is put down as soon as they approach the Mayombo sacred to walk into his palace in readiness for the main and final part of the ceremony. In the early hours of the afternoon, the palace grounds start filling up with members of the royal family. The Mwata, still in the Ekota, being prepared and dressed by his royal attendant called Masamba. The senior councillors called Babungu or Bokolunda file outside the Ekota's door in wait for their king. It is a picturesque scenery as Bafimanketa, hammock carriers, clad in red parade Mwatas Umuzolo outside Ekota, and the princes and princesses adorned in their imikonso dancing and ululating as they await the Mwata. The Mwata emerges from his castle draped in a 32-meter umukonso of 3 colors, blue/white/red, headgear of red fur sworn into colorful beads, his neck subdued in innumerable carefully sewn beads. Gunshots and the beat of Ikomawendo salute him. Mwata dances majestically to his Umuzolo for embarkment as the Babungu clap 3 times in salute. At the gates, the royal executioner called Katumatui slaughters a goat as Mwata's sacrifice for peace wherever he is going. Scores of people hail in wild rejoice as they escort their Mwata to the main arena on the outskirts of the village. Mwata's arrival at the main arena signifies commencement of official program. There are usually 4 dances performed during the ceremony, 3 which are by traditional decree performed by women and the other one by their elite few, usually by Basololo or Princess or the Mwata Kazembe himself. The first, Isinkwasa, is performed by a selected group of virgin girls. The choreography of this dance is concentrated on the swiftness of legs. Songs vary but the beat has always been the same, slow and majestic. The musical instrument in the royal singing ensemble comprises isinkombi, a wooden slate drum dug out from a mukusu tree. This acts as the harmonizer as it produces the heaviest sound. Then there's a tomba, a small drum made from a tree trunk and covered with animal skin. This drum is the bass producing bubbling sound that blends in with the other instruments. Then we have a malimba, the xylophone, responsible forms the core melody in the beat. We also have smaller drums as called asibitiku, sansil and bwiko. The 3 drums offer the second tenor sound, then the other 2, the alto and tenor sounds respectively. These drums above are all were presented in the second dance called Isilemolamo. This dance is performed by girls who have come of age. This dance is 2-pronged. It's meant to entertain but stealthily to provide a marriage bureau for the girls. Here the choreography of the dance involves romantically gyrating the waist in a slow and almost sexual way. Then the third is Amalapika. This one is performed by the elderly women who are responsible for the younger women. This one is not so much of the waist nor the legs, but mainly the hands. This dance is usually performed in celebrations such as banquets. The fourth and final dance is the Umutomboko Conquest dance. Historically, this conquest dance was performed every time Lundas conquered another tribe on their conquest expeditions from the Luba/Lunda Empire in the present-day Democratic Republic of the Congo. The choreography of this dance is masculine in nature and full of pomp and splendor. The dance is characterized by lifting and stomping of the right leg twice and once on the left, in sync with the rhythms of the isinkombi, amalimba, and the junior drums to the melodious choruses of the royal musicians. The lifting and stomping of the legs signifies stepping on every obstacle on their way and putting all adversaries under the feet of the king. There are rules to be observed when performing the royal dance. For example, it's only the Mwata who is permitted to lift the left leg more than once. In olden days, if one was caught out breaking this rule, it would attract punishment as grave as death. One of his attendants Masamba dances around him, holding a traditional sword, impoko, and an axe, mbofi. During the dance, the Mwata forcefully disarms the attendant, taking both weapons, and finishes the dance with them in hand. This is to symbolize triumph over his enemies. The dance lasts about 10 minutes, after which the Mwata retires immediately to his Umuzolo to be carried, danced, back to his palace by his bearers. This marks the end of the ceremony, and as soon as the Mwata is gone from sight, the crowd begins to disperse.